Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I would say that we are the longest company or organization working on bringing DeFi to Bitcoin. And that's quite a big statement, so I have to back it up. And hopefully, this presentation will be about that, and also about showing the potential of the ecosystem we have built in Rootstock. And why I say we are the longest running company bringing DeFi to Bitcoin is because we started way before the concept of DeFi existed, way before the concept of stable coins existed, but actually what we were bringing into Bitcoin was exactly that, a full-fledged financial system backed by Bitcoin. And how this story started, it's in Buenos Aires. It started in Buenos Aires in 2010 for my partner Sergio, in 2011 for me, around Bitcoin. But to understand why we were so early into Bitcoin, you have to understand the setting, the environment we were growing up and living. Buenos Aires is an amazing city, cosmopolitan city, part of a country that had every major financial crisis you can imagine. So we were the first to invent bail-ins before Cyprus. We had hyperinflation in the late 80s. We had, lock-ins for money in banks, financial controls, capital controls across the world for years and years. So anything you can imagine, devaluation of the currency, huge devaluation of the currency, like slashing zeros, like there is no tomorrow. So that's the environment where we got connected to Bitcoin. And that's why I always say Argentina in particular, but Latin America in general, are the perfect environment for Bitcoin and crypto to thrive. Because we know the consequences of having a fraudulent financial system managed by politicians. We know the consequences, we live those consequences. Most of our fathers and grandfathers have lost almost everything in the 2001 bail-in. Not everything, but 75% of their savings, lifetime savings. Imagine that. And, that's the reason why Bitcoin has one of the biggest communities in Argentina. So we have the longest running community and one of the biggest, more active Bitcoin communities. And also, because of that, it's one of the biggest and longest running crypto communities, where many of the big projects from Ethereum were born as well. So that combination of understanding the value of having a reliable financial system, and understanding technology, because also we have amazing developers, like a big developer community, make the perfect environment for Bitcoin to thrive and to be understood. And Rootstock is the convergence of two paths. On my side, I got into Bitcoin in 2011. I didn't get it. I think like most people have the same experience. And 1 year later, my dear friend Wences Casares brought me back in early 2012. And told me, Dieguito, you have to look at this. And I said, yeah, Wences, I already saw it. We are friends from the 90s, from the .com times. And he said, no, you have to do this. So he sent me 5,000 Bitcoins. I was in Buenos Aires, he was in Silicon Valley. Basically, in Argentina, we had capital controls. It was almost impossible to get money in and out. And when I had that experience, I said, this is how a free, open financial system could look like. We didn't have to ask permission from anybody. We did that exchange peer-to-peer. And that's when I said, I will leave everything and devote myself into Bitcoin. And that I did. I started creating with the two gentlemen on the side. I'm holding the camera. I'm not a cameraman, but that was a game. The two gentlemen on my side, Rodolfo Andrañez and Franco Amati, are my partners in building the Bitcoin community in Argentina, the Bitcoin communities in Latin America, La BitConf, the longest running Bitcoin conference in the world, now with 11,000 people going every year. Also, we did La Bitconeta, a band roaming around Latin America. And at the end of that process in 2013 of like building the communities, or not I would say the beginning, but where the foundations of the community were there, I decided I wanted to devote myself to see how Bitcoin could serve everybody. With the volatility Bitcoin had back then, and I think with the volatility that still has, it was impossible to bring Bitcoin to people who was living day by day, week by week, month by month. So we needed to create a full financial system with what now is called stable assets, but I didn't want to do that with counterparty risk. I didn't want to replicate the intermediation model that we have in the traditional financial system. I wanted to build everything with the ethos of Bitcoin. So with that idea is that we started doing some experiments in the slums of Buenos Aires to try to understand what we needed. And then we realized we needed a stable asset, we needed stable, maybe an Argentinian peso, ideally a dollar to escape inflation. We needed lending, borrowing, exchange of assets, payments, but we needed everything structured in a peer-to-peer fashion, and secured by Bitcoin. And at the end of 2014, I had a talk with Nick Szabo in Palo Alto, and we were discussing these realities. He wanted to know what was going on Bitcoin in Latin America, and the idea of extending Bitcoin to have smart contracts appear. And in that conversation, the name of a brilliant cyberpunk called Sergio Lerner, an Argentinian as well, who defended Bitcoin in the early days from several critical bugs that would have rendered the network useless, appear. And then we reach out to Sergio to start discussing how to extend Bitcoin, to become a full-fledged financial system. So that's where the other track of the story comes. Sergio came to Bitcoin to attack it in 2010 because he was developing a system of mental poker that basically is an online poker system that works in a fully peer-to-peer fashion. So it's a fair game, even you have nobody running the system. So of course, he was looking at decentralized systems, and he found basically Bitcoin. And he said, this cannot work. So he came to attack it, and actually he found these critical bugs, but he was in such wonder of what Bitcoin was that he decided, instead of attacking it, help the Bitcoin Core team to solve those problems, and he did. And thanks to that, Bitcoin now, some of the bugs that Sergio detected back then were fixed with Segwit very recently, like the parabolic bug. So with that, Sergio started thinking on how to sort many of the crypto problems and expand the crypto ecosystem in different ways. And in 2013, he created the first Turing-complete cryptocurrency called Quickscoin, 1 year before Ethereum was even announced. So that was Sergio's path: understanding Bitcoin, protecting Bitcoin, extending Bitcoin, or extending the capabilities of crypto at that moment, not necessarily Bitcoin directly. So he was building a team on his own. While I was building the communities, I was building the first company with a partner. He was with 2 other partners building Quickscoin that eventually turned into NimbleCoin. And when they were doing that in 2015, after these initial talks we had with Sergio, they called me because they wanted to understand how to bootstrap a crypto economy for NimbleCoin. And then we started meeting in this cafe in Buenos Aires, the Torino. It's very peculiar because they give you like a latte that is basically like undrinkable. It's like so big that you can never finish. So we had this joke every Thursday when we were meeting, like, who will finish the latte? And nobody did. It's like we were always like 3/4 up to it. But then in this conversation, we say, guys, why instead of like launching a new cryptocurrency, with what it implies is providing liquidity, acceptance for a cryptocurrency, bootstrapping a new network from scratch, why don't we go for this idea we had of like expanding Bitcoin into a full-fledged financial system? And then Sergio started working with all the knowledge he has been building over the years. He built the white paper of Rootstock. And we shared that white paper with 5 people we respected, Andreas Antonopoulos, Nick Szabo, Eric Borges, and Roger Ver, that was at that moment the Bitcoin Jesus. So, and Nick got excited and tweeted about it. So in October 7, 2015, he said, Rootstock, the best of Bitcoin and Ethereum under one roof. And that was it. It's like the thing was in the wild. We say, if we don't tackle this, then somebody else will do it. So we went full ahead to build it. And in 2018, on the birthday of Bitcoin, we went live. And what we created was the first DeFi layer for Bitcoin in production. It started with 5% of the hashing power because it's merge mined by the Bitcoin miners. It started with a POW-PEG that had limited allowance in terms of the Bitcoins that could hold. And over the years, became what it is today. Recently, we reached 87% of the hashing power of Bitcoin. So almost all the Bitcoin miners in the world are both securing Bitcoin and Rootstock at the same time. That peg that started with a small cap of 100 Bitcoins now is hosting 3,000 Bitcoins. It's the longest bridge to Bitcoin in existence without a hack, with 3,000 Bitcoins at stake. So it's the safest way to peg Bitcoin into a second layer. And so we went as close, when you want to have more functionality, necessarily you have to trade off security. But in our model, we believe we need to build a system, a layered system, where we will have delegation of concerns. So in our model, Bitcoin is maximized for security, sacrifice functionality and scalability for the sake of security, because Bitcoin is the store of value layer. So that's where you want to store your wealth. And then, once you have that wealth securely stored, you can use that wealth as the foundation for having economic coordination. So on the second layer, what you have is Rootstock that handles economic coordination. So it allows us to have agreements, economically bound agreements, that will be there available 100% of the time. So we share with Bitcoin that data availability of 100%. But then we realized over the years that blockchains don't scale well. I mean, blockchains for a lot of reasons, but for example, a simple one is like you can only have around 50 million accounts on a blockchain, any blockchain, it doesn't matter, directly operating with a blockchain for memory issues. Computers will evolve, but still the limitation is there. If you have a blockchain that processes 400 transactions per second, it will grow at 1 terabyte per year. Therefore, in a few years, that blockchain needs to be centralized and become a corporate blockchain. So if you want to keep the principles of Bitcoin, you need to scale on a third layer. And that's when we started building Reef. Reef is basically a scaling layer on top of Rootstock that uses off-chain interactions, cryptographically signed off-chain interactions that don't hit the blockchain unless it's absolutely necessary. So they only hit the blockchain if there's a dispute resolution that needs to be made or a settlement. But other than that, all transactions happen off-chain on a purely peer-to-peer way. So that's the stack we envisioned from the beginning. This model has been there since 2015. I've been giving talks about this since 2016. But today, and the following step is like once we achieve this, then we need to have the financial primitives, the basic financial primitives. And the first one that came was the original thing we discussed with Sergio in 2014, that it was a peer-to-peer monetary system. a great group of entrepreneurs build money on chain that is a Fort Knox that issues a dollar. It's a digital Fort Knox that issues a dollar backed by Bitcoin. And it's over-collateralized, so it has survived the 50% crash of Bitcoin in 2020. It has survived other crashes in between flawlessly. So we have the first Bitcoin-backed stablecoin in Rootstock in existence since 2019. Now has 125 million TVL, so it's growing organically, but steady. And it grows 70% per year over year. Once you have this peer-to-peer monetary system backed by Bitcoin, then other people started building the other financial primitives. So now you have a dollar you can rely, you can convert to Bitcoin. Also, one important thing is money on chain has been creating yield for Bitcoiners that supported the protocols since inception on an average of 4% per year. So it's connecting. That was the first time where we connected that original vision of like serving the people who has shorter financial time horizons that needs to be on the dollar because they cannot afford to be for 2-3 years. They need to be for a few months doing savings and connecting the wealth that is there, like storing value for the longer time. No? So we create that bridge between the two. But then you need to provide more functionality. So lending was the next step. So now a Bitcoiner that don't want to sell their Bitcoin but has a short-term liquidity need can go to Tropicus and get a loan against the Bitcoins they have in money on chain and pay a yield, and that yield will go to the ones holding the dollars that need to create, that want to protect their wealth in a shorter term and have some yield on top. So now you have a peer-to-peer lending system. All of these secured by Bitcoin. But today, in 2025, because of all these constructions, and all the technology that was developed in recent years, I think we are in a moment where we finally are starting the final phase of hyper-Bitcoinization. But it won't be a hyper-Bitcoinization as many imagine, where Bitcoin will be used directly, but it will be a hyper-Bitcoinization where Bitcoin will be at the foundations of the financial system that people will use in everyday life. So that hyper-Bitcoinization will happen because Bitcoin will be the quantum of value supporting the stable assets, the real-world assets, the synthetic assets that represent commodities, that represent anything that is valuable for the world to operate. And depending on your financial horizon, you will go directly to the tools that Rootstock has that provide yields for Bitcoin, or you will go to the tools that provide yield for the stable assets if you have a shorter financial horizon. So this hyper-Bitcoinization that, in my point of view, for my experience, these 12, 13 years, fully devoting my life in full to Bitcoin, for me is starting now. There were some scaling things that were not sorted out. I think rollups from Ethereum brought solutions that we needed in order to scale, and those are being integrated in Rootstock as well. So now we have the 3 layers like finally available to create a system that can serve billions of people. So for everyday people, for small and medium business, it's providing the basic primitives: lending, borrowing, sending, savings. This is happening in Latin America already. This is happening in Africa. People is using our systems for the daily needs. We also work with partners. All our strategies working with partners, with wallets in the regions that will package these solutions, because the complexity of interacting with smart contracts directly is very high. So we work with partners in the different regions that package these protocol solutions and understand the risk needs, the risk profile and the needs of their customers, and offer these solutions. But also, Rootstock is the best home for people willing to build in Bitcoin, because we have a full set of financial primitives. So you can plug in your solution into this full set of financial primitives. And also you have all the tooling available. We have the top-tier tooling that you have in Ethereum also available on Rootstock. And also we have a nascent community, a very thriving and engaged community that you can interact with to test your solutions and build them. So Rootstock today is the most advanced and complete infrastructure for building on Bitcoin. So if you are a builder, this is a place, and you want to go to Bitcoin, this is a place to go. Finally, we are also helping institutions use these tools for their treasury, for their Bitcoin treasury strategy, because these are on-chain yield strategies that are very safe because you can see in real time, how the assets are used, the backing of the assets. So you have opportunities to create Bitcoin yield. But again, I think the complexity for an institution to use these tools directly is high. So that's why we created Rootstock Institutional. And if you reach to our teams, they will help you with the process of making use of your Bitcoin treasury. So with that, we are delivering on our promise of making Bitcoin work for everybody. So now we have an ecosystem, a platform that follows the ethos and the values of Bitcoin, but that can serve everybody in our society, whether it's like everyday people, institutions, small and medium business, and builders that want to innovate and grow the Bitcoin ecosystem. So here we are. Some things are built to last, like the pyramids. Bitcoin was built to last, and Rootstock lining the rest of the Bitcoin ecosystem. Many of us have the same, vision and purpose of building a financial system that will serve humanity for the centuries to come. As I said, for me, this is the beginning of Bitcoin mass adoption. So hopefully, 10 years from now, we'll see again, and we'll cheer and toast for the hyper-Bitcoinization of the world. Thank you.